Thank you, everybody. My name is Francisco Nunez. I am one of the. Okay. Okay. Hi. My name is Francisco Nunez. I am a certification officer with Department of Procurement Services. I will be going over becoming certified with the City of Chicago. Like Jackie mentioned, let's wait. Let's try to wait for the questions till the end. That way, whoever's listening online can hear the questions and then my answer. This is going to be very straightforward and gets to the point. I'll try to be as detailed as possible. The more information you guys get from this, the better and easier it will be for you guys when you guys are filling out your application. First things first, a little bit overview about our department. The Department of Procurement Services is the contracting authority for the procurement of goods and services for the City of Chicago. We work together as a team and with our customers to guarantee open, fair, and timely process by establishing communication and enforcing superior business practices. So with that being said, know that the Department of Procurement Services is here to give you information for you to be able to use to advance your business. Okay, that's our whole mission here, and we're going to be working together to get that done. Now, the types of certifications available at the City of Chicago. We have the minority-owned business enterprise, woman-owned business enterprise. A couple years ago, we started the veteran-owned business enterprise. And we also have BEPD, which is business-owned or operated by people with disability. So that one's a little bit special in regards to it needs a little bit more documentation, but we'll go over it in a second. Then we also have DBE and ACDBE. I want you, when you think of DBE and ACDBE, I want you to think of it as a separate application because it is. So there are two separate types of application. One application that will cover MBE, WBE, VBE, BEPD. That's all the same application. And that application is governed by city ordinance. City ordinance determines what's in that application, what is required. Now, DBE and ACDBE is part of a federal program. So it's a separate application that has been done in a program that is monitored by the federal government. Okay, what do we do? Or MBEWE, what we do. So what we do is we do anything, we in certification will answer any of your questions regarding certification. We'll answer any of your questions when you're filling out the application. Unfortunately, when you're filling out the application, we cannot offer any type of advice because we are the reviewing officers. We don't want to get caught up in a situation where we give you advice and then it's incorrect and then the burden falls on you, so that's not going to happen. We try to prevent that, but what we can do is we can give you other resources that can help you find that advice or those answers. What I normally do is if anybody asks me a question that has to do with legal stuff, I honestly have to just tell them, you have to consult a lawyer because the last thing I want to do is give bad information. Okay, but amongst the things that we do, we review new applications. Once you're certified, for the next 4 years, you will have to submit what's called a no-change affidavit. The no-change affidavit just pretty much lets us know if anything has changed in your firm. Therefore, if something has changed, that's okay. We just have to make sure that it still falls within the guidelines. If nothing has changed, it's much easier. But every 5 years, you do have to fill out a recertification application. The recertification application will require more documents, but not as many documents as the initial application that you guys are going to be doing. Now, besides certification, Department of Procurement Services also they also do the compliance of contractual obligations. What does that mean? Once you're certified, you can become a subcontractor in our contracts, right? Most of our contracts require participation from certified firms. Now, the compliance of it is we at the Department of Procurement Services receive information from the prime contractors and the subcontractors to make sure that the subcontractors are actually being used and that they're actually getting paid. So that's part of what we do at DPS as well. And then if you have any questions, again, you can always call us, and these are the websites where you can find all of the answers to any questions. So if you go to cityofchicago.org/procurement, you'll be able to find our regulations, you'll be able to find any documents, any explanations on things. But again, all that can be also done by giving us a call. And chicago.mwdbe.com is our certification portal. That's where you're going to go fill out your application. Everything is done online. We can no longer accept anything in paper form unless there is, for DBE, if you really want to do it for DBE, we will. But I don't recommend it. What I've noticed from my experience is that a lot of people feel, when they do it online, it's a lot easier because you will always have those documents available now. You can always go back. Think of it as a, a place where you can find everything you need because you've already submitted that information, and that'll stay in there for a while. And we follow all privacy laws, So why do you want to be certified? So it provides visibility. Once you're certified, the City of Chicago does have what's called a directory. So anyone and everyone can go in there and type keywords or NACIS codes that they're interested in looking. And then a list of all the firms who have that NACIS code or that description will show up. So this gives you some visibility there. And like I mentioned earlier, there are minority, women, veteran, disadvantaged business participation go in city contracts and projects. This includes all assist agencies. Now, I say most. There are some contracts that will not require it, but those are because they are so specialized that there is really no one who is certified that can offer that type of help. But those are a different story, and it doesn't really apply to certification. And also, you got to remember that a lot of people who get certified don't necessarily want to get contracts with government. A lot of them utilize this certification to go to the private sector. There's a lot of companies in the city or in the state of Illinois who also have their diversity. They have their diversity goals in all the contracts that they have going on. So just to give you an example, Walgreens recently was doing a lot of renovations. So I know that there was certified vendors who used their certification as proof to Walgreens. Look, I'm a certified minority-owned business, and they were able to secure contracts like that. So don't think of certification as just something that is for government contracting. There are so many things you can do with it. And at the end of the day, remember that certification does not guarantee you any contract. It just gives you a better chance of participating in contracts. Okay, so it's a marketing tool at the end of the day. Now, the City of Chicago has also a target market program which provides exclusive bidding opportunities to certified firms of minority and women-owned businesses. This allows certified businesses to take 100% of the contract because there are no subcontractor goals associated with this project. What does that mean? When the City of Chicago issues contracts, we have to make sure that the company has the capacity to actually do the work, right? We're also not going to award a contract to someone who does not have the capacity. So what the city has done is they've tried to identify contracts that can be that can be awarded to smaller companies with less capabilities. Not necessarily because they can't do the big contracts, they just don't have the capabilities. Either the equipment, the personnel, the software systems, things like that. So what the city is doing is they're taking exception and looking at some of these contracts and saying, wait, can this be done by a mid-sized or small-sized business That's really what they're looking. If it can be done by a small or mid-sized business, they'll tag it and consider to see if it can be given exclusively to a certified firm. Now, when it comes to certification, there are some things that when it comes to certification, there are some things that are like just there. They're facts. You need to meet those requirements. And then there are other parts of our certification that requires the officer, like myself, to look into the information and come up with an explanation and making sure that yes, a determination that yes, this firm does qualify. One of those things is, do you qualify? Well, first of all, you automatically qualify if you are a part of any of these groups, which is African American, Hispanic, Asian, Native American. In order to be Native American, you do have to be able to show that you are a member of a tribe. Or you have to be able to reasonably explain that how you're affiliated with a Native American. The burden always falls on the applicant, okay? Now, women, a veteran, for veterans, right now as it states, it has to be an honorable discharge or other than honorable. So if you have a dishonorable discharge, as it stands right now, you won't qualify for VBE, okay? And then we talked about BEPD briefly, and what you're going to have to submit, because none of us are trained medical professionals, so we don't have the expertise to even discuss or talk about anything that has to do with medical issues, or not even issues, just medical why you would qualify for BEPD. So what we do is we have what's called the Schedule G, that is part of the application, and if you feel you qualify, you take that to your physician. Once your doctor fills it out, you come to the Mayor's Office of People with Disability. They have the trained staff and qualified individuals who can look at it and approve it. If they see it and they say, yes, this is legit, they'll send us notification upstairs, so you guys won't have to do much. You guys just have to go turn in the stuff to the Mayor's Office of People with Disability, and we'll take the rest. We'll take it from there. And if you don't fall into these requirements, there's always what we call an affidavit of social disadvantage. This affidavit of social disadvantage can be filled out by any person who feels that they are either economically or socially disadvantaged, and you will then explain why you feel you have been discriminated against in this country and things like that, and then it goes through a board, who then decides whether you qualify or not. But that's done separately. Again, it's out of our hands as officers. We don't do any of that. We just assist you guys with making sure you guys fill out the paperwork necessary so we can get to the answers. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about veteran-owned business enterprise. Okay, so veteran means a person who has served in the United States, the armed forces, and was discharged or separated under not dishonorable conditions. So like I said earlier, you can apply for VBE if you are a veteran who has anything except the dishonorable discharge. So how are you going to prove that? You prove that with either your DD-214 or your DD-215. DD-215 is a document that you get if there are any corrections made to the original DD-214. If you don't have a DD-214 or DD-215, it is your responsibility to contact the VA in order to be able to obtain it. So that's the first of the hard hold facts. in certification. The next one is you have to be what's called a local business. What does a local business mean? It's a principal place of business, and the majority of your full-time workforce is located in the following counties. So for the city of Chicago, for DBE, MBE, WBE, VBE, and BEPD, you have your main office, and the majority of your workforce has to be in Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, or Will counties. Has to be in one of those 6 counties. If you're outside those 6 counties, you do not qualify for the program whatsoever. Now, if you are doing DBE or ACDBE, that's a statewide program that the state has to, if you are operating in the state, you qualify. Now, with that being said, there are other agencies as well, other than the city of Chicago, that does DBE and ACDBE, but we're not going to get into that. So normally, all of the firms that we get here at the city of Chicago still fall within that 6-county region. It's just easier for businesses to look what certifying agency and where they're located, just because it'll make it easier for them as well. Okay, and with you guys being here, I would assume that you guys are from the area or closer. Now, 51% of the business has to be owned and controlled by a minority woman, veteran, and or person with disability for DBE and ACDBE, socially or economically disadvantaged individuals. So what does that mean? That means that if me, Francisco Nunez, as a Hispanic man, goes into business with my counterpart, Emmett Morrissey, who is a Caucasian man, I have to be able to demonstrate that I own 51% of the business and that I actually have the control of that 51%. If I'm not able to demonstrate that, I will not qualify. It's just that simple. Or, for example, if my wife started a business and I'm 49% owner, but she's going to apply for woman-owned and minority-owned, she needs to be able to demonstrate that she controls the business, not me. Otherwise, we would probably still qualify for MBE, just not WBE. So that's how that works. So just know that whoever the qualifying member must have control of the business. And if there's anything outside the ordinary, that's where the officer's interpretation and their recommendation comes from. And again, we're here not to deny any firms. We want everybody to do well. We just have these guidelines set, and we have to enforce them. So then one of the other requirements is business size standards. So MBE, WBE, VBE, the gross receipts must not exceed 39.9 million averaged over 3 years for non-construction companies. So just to make it easy, what the city of Chicago considers a construction company is any company that is seeking certification in codes that start with 236, 237, or 238. If you are seeking certification with a code that starts with those 3 numbers, you are considered a construction firm. Now, construction firm falls a little bit different. It's not 38.9 million. It is SBA size standards. So what does that mean? The Small Business Administration produces a list of industries and classifies each NACES code on what they feel a small business cannot exceed. So for example, an electrical company that makes over 15 million in an average of 3 years, it's not considered to be disadvantaged. Therefore, regardless of whether the owner is a minority or a woman, you're no longer considered disadvantaged. And this allows us to keep bringing in new individuals. And I mean, if you ask me, anybody that's in business and they don't qualify because of size standards, it's a good problem to have. And, but the city, so now those SBA size standards, when it comes to construction companies and the local program, It's a 5-year average. Now, for DBE and ACDBE, regardless of what you are applying for, SBA size standards count, or 23.98 million, whichever is smaller. So there are some codes whose SBA size standard is bigger than 23.98. For example, bridge construction size standard is 36.5. But DBE regulations require that you use 23.98 if the SBA size standard is bigger or greater. ACDBE, on the other hand, ACDBE is a certification that is required for you to do work, or not do work, participate in work with the concessions at the airport. So there are companies that will never even qualify for ACDBE because they have no useful function at the airport. So in essence, concessionaires, restaurants, bakers, even like pest control, you can argue that pest control people can be ACDBE certified, right? Because they can become part of a contract to do pest control for everyone. So that's what you need to consider. Look at your business, see if it's feasible. So if you're a drywall installer, ACDBE doesn't matter because your DBE certification will allow you to do construction projects at the airport. Okay, so now we'll go to another one, which is personal net worth standards. Now, personal net worth is referring to the personal net worth of the qualifying individual. For MBE, WBE, VBE, and BEPD, personal net worth applies to only construction companies. So again, any firm that has a construction code that starts with 236, 237, or 238 will be subject to personal net worth standard. And currently, the City of Chicago's personal net worth limit is $2,276,550. So if your personal net worth is higher than that and you're trying to do construction, you will not qualify. Now, if you are going for DBE or ACDBE, it's across the board. You can't be worth more than 1.32 million. How do we get this calculation? This calculation is included in whatever money you have saved up, whatever money you have in your IRAs, investment accounts, property, things like that. But we also do take into consideration that a lot of people may have companies that are worth a lot more than that. So we exclude the value of the company that is being certified from your personal net worth, and we also exclude the value of your personal residence. So that way we don't disqualify many people. The calculation of well, we talked about that, so we'll move on to the next. Okay, so now, one of the big questions that's always asked, what kind of companies qualify to become certified? So obviously, Francisco Nunez Construction, that is doing business from my own basement, and when they call me and they say, hey, can you build a closet for me? And I go build a closet for them, but there's no taxes, there's nothing, you won't be able to get certified. You have to be an established business. Whether it's as a sole proprietor, typically one person, there's really no legal existence of the business except yourself. For people who are conducting business like that, like for instance, if I'm using my own social security number, I have to have an assumed name certificate with Cook County saying, me, Francisco Nunez, am doing business as myself under Francisco Nunez Construction. So, and it's more than anything, it's tax liabilities. We have general partnerships, which is the same concept, but it's two people instead of one. The more typical ones that we get are like corporations. So anytime you see a company that is at the end Inc. or corporation, and it doesn't matter how long you've been in business. If you're in business yesterday, you can apply for certification today. So you have to make sure that your firm is in good standings with the state, that you have your articles of incorporation, bylaws of the corporation. A lot of times we have sole member or one owner, and you may not have bylaws. We understand that as well. You just need to explain to us why you don't have them, and that's it. Now, copies of all stock certificates and meeting minutes. Again, if you don't have all this because you're a small company, we get it. Don't stress out about it. Provide to us whatever you do have. And then we're going to let you know whether it's enough or not. And that goes back to my original comment earlier, where we don't want to give you advice. Because if I tell you something and then you go out there and spend $1,200 or $200 to do something that you had like you didn't even have to do, you're going to be upset and I'm going to feel bad, and nothing's going to change. So then we have other people have limited partnerships. Again, assumed name certificates. The other company the other type that is very, very popular is LLCs, limited liability companies. So with these companies, if you are the qualifying individual, you got to make sure that you are a managing member. Because if you're not a managing member, then there's a lot of issues there. And with this, you would have an operating agreement. Again, if you're a sole member LLC, you may not have it. Give us an explanation. We may accept it. We always prefer that you have everything, of course. And you'll have articles of organization. So those are the basic things you need to have in order to apply for certification. Now we're going to jump into suppliers. And the reason why we're going to jump into suppliers have a little bit of an extra task that they need to do and prove in order to be certified as a supplier. So a supplier must be a regular dealer, which is a firm that owns, operates, or maintains a store, warehouse, or other establishment in which materials, supplies, articles, or equipment are bought, kept in stock, and regularly sold or leased to the public in the usual course of business. So what does that mean? That just pretty much means that you have to have a running inventory that has to be available to the general public. Or even if it's not to the general public, it has to be available to whoever your customer is. But it means that you have to have a stock. You can't be a supplier and just wait for somebody to order something and then you order it somewhere else. And then they drop it off. That's not what we consider a supplier in the city of Chicago. So now we have distributors. So say for the best way to explain this, so we have a lot of mattress stores, right? They sell mattresses like Sealy. I'll use Sealy mattresses as an example. So Sealy doesn't sell their own mattresses. They find distributors. They find people to sell their stuff. So they usually will give you an exclusive. Here, Francisco Nunez, you could sell our mattresses from Madison and State all the way to 63rd Street, all the way to Cicero. That's your distribution area. Anywhere in that area, you can sell our mattresses. And then they'll have a different distributor in a different area. I'm just using an example, not a real story. But that's a distributor. You have to have a distribution agreement. If you have a distribution agreement, that helps because you no longer have to carry a inventory because you can order as your customers are ordering the stuff. Okay? Now, what cannot be certified is a broker. A broker would not qualify for certification. So firms acting as brokers are not eligible for certification as an MBE, WBE, VBE, BEPD, but can be eligible for certification as a DBE. Now remember, the MBE, WBEs are regulated by city ordinance, and DBE, ACDBE by federal law. So a person or entity that fills orders by purchasing or receiving supplies from a third-party supplier rather than from its own existing inventory and provides no substantial services other than acting as a conduit between his or her supplier and his or her customer is considered a broker. So again, if you're a broker, you just will not be certified as a MBE, WBE, or MBE, WBE, VBE, or BEPD. DBE, it may be able to happen. All right. So that just talks about that a little bit. We only have a couple more slides to go, and these are going to go pretty quick. So the online application process, like I mentioned earlier, you have to submit your application online at chicago.mwdbe.com. I'm not sure why it says www. We don't need that www dot in the beginning, just chicago.mwdbe.com. It is a $250 fee for MBE, WBE, and VBE. Now, if you're applying for all three, the fee is still $200. There's just $250. There's just a $250 fee for the initial application. Now, every 5 years, when we do a recertification, there is another $250 fee. But in between the years when we do the no change affidavits, there is no fee. Now, for DBE and ACDBE, there is no fee at all. You don't have to pay anything. Now, once we receive your application, we will review it to make sure that it is complete enough for us to receive it. Once we receive it, we will send you an invoice so you can pay your $250. The $250 can be paid online or in any city payment location throughout the city. I always recommend online is the easiest. And then once we get the $250 fee from you guys, it will be assigned to an officer shortly after. And then you'll know who the officer that's reviewing your application is. Okay, so, and when you get that invoice, just look at that second page of the invoice, has the website address so you can make the payment online, all right? Now, what kind of information is the application going to ask for? And this is very important. Contact information. Make sure you guys use reliable contact information. Whenever you're putting in your email address, sometimes we may have multiple. Use the one that you know you're going to check every day. Use the phone number that you know you're going to answer every day. I know you may have a cell phone and an office phone. Which one are you going to answer? So just use the best possible. It is, to me, it has happened to me where I start reviewing an application and a month later I'm trying to get a hold of them and like numbers are disconnected or the email not being responded to. So make sure that during application you guys keep an eye on that. And also remember that it's always as simple as making a phone call to us in case you guys have any questions. Okay, then we're going to, depending on the type of certification, we discussed BEPD requires a Schedule G, which is what you're going to submit to the Mayor's Office of Peoples with Disability. And then you also, for VBE, we talked about DD-214 or DD-215. Ownership information. Talked about it. We're going to need your articles of incorporation or articles of organization, depending on the type of structure you build your company with. Employee information is important because we want to see who's working for you and what their duties are, just to make sure that you control the business. Facility information. What does facility information mean? It's simply you're going to have to provide a lease or a tax bill showing where you do business to make sure you do fall within the guidelines that we have. Financial information. So the financial information is a must. We're going to need tax returns. We're going to tax returns. We're going to need financial statements. If you have a bank statements. All of this, again, goes into the review that we do to make sure that you as a certified firm are actually who qualifies for the program. And we try to keep a close eye on that to make sure that our qualified firms and certified firms are actually legitimately following the guidelines of the program. There's a lot of things that happen that people do for whatever reasons they do, but that makes them not qualify for the program. And if you don't qualify for the program, it has nothing to do personally with you. It's just the way it was set up. And if you don't qualify for the program, you could reapply in a year, make the changes necessary, because a lot of times people don't know. A lot of times people don't know, but there's a reason why the regulations read the way they read. This has been done for a long time, and we try to eliminate any abuse of this program as much as possible. Licenses. Licenses is very, 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 very important when it comes to certification in this regard. Depending on what you do, it is your job to know what licenses you need to have in order to do business. If you apply for certification and you don't have the proper licensing, we can't certify you. So, and also keep into consideration that local laws do apply. So if you are a business that is in Rockford, which is Will County, we're not going to subject you to City of Chicago laws if you're not doing business with the city. If you're just doing stuff in Rockford, Rockford law applies, and that's okay. But there are certain trades and jobs that require special licensing. So just to give you one example, roofing. If I wanted to do roofing, even though I know how to hammer in a shingle, I need to have a state of Illinois roofing license. It's a special license for roofers. There's no exceptions to this. So in the city of Chicago, if you want to apply for masonry, city of Chicago requires a masonry license. So you have to have that. Okay, and unfortunately, this is something you need to figure out on your own for your business, what licenses are required. All right, now we're going to go through a couple more, and these are pretty self-explanatory. We're going to need resumes of all owners and key personnel, evidence of executed contracts. So what this means is just going to give us a quick overview of the type of work that you do and you have performed in the past. We're going to ask for your proof of equity contribution. When you started your business, where that money come from? A lot of times it can be as simple as $180 to incorporate with the state of Illinois. Depending on the type of business, that's all it takes. Others might require you to buy equipment, so you're going to have to provide a proof of payment of that equipment and where you got it from. Your bank account, organizational. So make sure you give us a good snapshot of how you have your business organized. Equipment list allows us to see your capacity, allows us to see, okay, well, if they're excavators and they have 2 backhoes, I get it. Yeah, I mean, you have title for them, you paid for them, you can show where the funds came from. And loan information. So a lot of times you have businesses that need loans, and we want to see who's signing for these loans, who's backing these loans. And again, all of this information together is how we determine whether you control whether the qualifying individual controls the business or not. When we talk about financial documents, these are the things we're going to need. 3 years of federal business tax returns, 5 years for construction firms, both individual and business. 4506T, it's an IRS form that we can verify your taxes. We don't verify them all the time, but if we get a special case that we have to double check and make sure the information they submitted is correct, we have the right to use it. Me personally, I've never used it. I've never had to use it. I don't know of any certification officer that has used it, but it's part of the regulations that it does require it. W-2s and 1099s for yourself and any other firm that is certified. There's going to be like personal net worth statements that you're going to have to download and then print and upload once you fill them out. Okay? After the application is submitted, we talked about this, and the process takes approximately 90 days from the day we receive all documents. So make sure you submitted everything we're asking for, because that will create major delays. And again, we check in the beginning to make sure we have enough documents to start the review process. We do audit everything you submit, so make sure you submit the correct information. And again, don't worry about it too much, because at the end of the day, if we need more information when we're doing the review process, we're going to ask for it, but it's just going to take longer. And I would say that most of the applications do require more information. Let me see.
What areas do you notice?
You may receive a site visit depending on the type of work you're doing. So construction, supplier, trucking, manufacturing. If you do any of those, you will get a site visit. If you apply for DBE, regardless of what you do, it requires a site visit. What does this mean? That means that our field analyst is going to come to your place of business and just conduct an interview and do a walkthrough. Okay, and if approved, you will have to submit a recertification every 5 years. We do have what's called an expedited process. It's an outside certification. What it means is that you're already certified with Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council or with the Women's and Business Development Center. Now, just pay close attention to this one. So if you're certified with one and not the other, and you qualify for both, you can only use this application for, if you're with CMSDC, for MBE, if you are with WBDC, for WBE. So if you qualify for both and you're certified with one of them and you want to use this application, remember you can only use it for MBE or WBE. I have had applications where they're certified with both. So then we could use it for both M and W. Okay. Now, that application is called Expedited Process, not because it's quicker, but it just requires less information. Because what we're saying is those other organizations have already checked you out and they think you qualify, so we're not going to reinvent the wheel. That's all it means. It doesn't mean it's going to go faster. Do I recommend? I don't recommend anything to anyone, but you can look at it if you think it's a good idea. I always think whatever you guys think is best for your business is best for your business. All vendors must submit annually a no change, which we discussed. And this is a way of you guys letting us know every year, hey, we're still good, we're still the same. Oh, hey, man, this changed. Do I still and 90% of the time you still qualify. And again, it's all, and every 5 years you do a recertification. So now this is something that happens a lot. I submitted my application, I got approved, and I realized that I forgot to add a code that is very important to my business. So what I can do then is submit an expansion request. Expansion requests they don't cost anything. And all you have to do now is submit information to prove to the certification officer that you can do the work in that new code or codes that you're applying for. The City of Chicago Department of Procurement Services does procurement for most of our city departments, but there are some sister agencies that do their own procurement, but we still, and they accept our certifications. So like Chicago Public Schools, Cook County. So if you're certified with the city, you do not have to be certified with Cook County. They accept our certification as their own, and vice versa. If you're certified with Cook County, you do not need our certification. We will accept Cook County's as if it was ours. But there's the rest of the list of the other agencies that accept our certifications. Now we're going to talk about something really, really quick, which is top 10 reasons why people get denied. We have no clear, we can't clearly identify where your startup funds came from or who really owns the company. It is unclear description of the critical functions. So maybe you're applying for certification in certain codes, but you've never done that stuff, and that's what we determine. So that could be another one. Startup funds, expansion of capital, outside secondary employment. If you have a full-time job, that's okay. You can have a full-time job, that's not a problem. But you can have a full-time job, that's not a problem, but it has to correlate with your business. So if I have a construction company and I work for a construction company, how am I running my business? Hours of operations are all the same, right? So that's what we need to know. Now, if I work for an office, and then after I get off work, I go to a different business that I have, and I work throughout the night, I get it. Makes sense. Just make sure everything makes sense. Point of contact didn't respond because we don't have updated information on how to get a hold of them. Inconsistencies with documents. Some documents may say this, and this document says something completely different. Problems with contracts, missing information, not being able to prove you can do the work. You don't have tax information available, or you refuse to share it. Required documents not attached. If you don't think you should submit something, give us an explanation on why. And a lot of times, we understand that if a business was incorporated this year in January, you're not going to have tax returns. We get it. Just let us know. Now, personal tax returns, we should have them, but But we do have people that don't have personal tax returns, and as long as you provide a good answer or reason, we're not going to, we have no, we have no opinion about it. We get it. So now these are all the ways that you can reach out to us here. And again, remember, you can go on YouTube channel, and it's Chicago DPS. And you can find this course and other people explaining the same course. Now we're going to move down to questions, and I'm going to have to walk around the room so you can ask the question with the microphone. Then I'll answer them. We have about 7 minutes to answer questions. I will stick around. If you have a very personalized question directly about your business, you can stick around, and I'll answer your questions offline. Okay, so does anybody have any questions?
Okay, I have a question about the facility information. You said you need a lease or a tax bill. I'm planning to run this business out of my home.
Okay, so the question is about lease. Yes, home businesses is not a problem. Home business is not a problem as long as you can perform the work there. So, for example, if you're a manufacturer, that's not going to work. You need somewhere where you're manufacturing, where you're keeping all your machinery. If you need, so for example, there's a lot of construction companies that are a sole worker construction company, and they base it off their home. They use their garage to store their tools, and they have a van. That makes sense. We have consultants who work at night from home. That works. But there are just certain things. If you have to carry an inventory, maybe you have a big basement. Who knows? All right. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I heard you say about you have to provide proof of income tax return, W-2. What if this is your first year, you're just getting started, and you don't have no revenue?
Yes. So again, like if the business is brand new, we get it. We get it. I can't ask you for 2016 returns if you incorporate in 2019. Now, with the personal tax returns, technically we're supposed to have them, but again, we don't know what the circumstances are and what your personal circumstances are. Therefore, just providing a clear explanation with maybe some evidence to back up your explanation should be sufficient. There are certain things that you have to weigh, right? So if Francisco Nunez owns Francisco Nunez Construction, and he bought a $500,000 crane, but he can't provide information on how he got that crane. Yeah, that's not going to work, because where did it come from? You know, we don't know. And if we can't, but if we're talking about a laptop, we're not gonna ask. You know, this is more for like huge, but not even huge. It could even be something that's $15,000, $20,000. It all depends on what you do and how important the equipment or thing is for you to perform your day-to-day functions. Any other questions?
If you have a multi-state location, like a location is two different states, seeing that there was a $38.9 million gross receipt requirements, is that just for the state of Illinois or all combined?
So that asks a question that hits on a couple of things. So we do have firms that are certified who have like satellite locations in other states or cities. That's okay. But you have to be a local business. What that means is that you have to be based out of here, 51%. The owner, your headquarters have to be based in our 6-county region. If that is the case, all revenue will be counted. All revenue throughout every state, throughout every affiliate. So if you have 5 or 6 different entities that do the same thing or work intertwinedly work to get the job done, all those gross receipts will be added. And that's why we need financial information, because through tax returns we can see almost everything when it comes to like a digital footprint of what businesses you're involved with, how much you're making, and things like that. And again, remember, this whole process of us reviewing it is to make sure that everybody who is certified should be certified and things like that. The system is here for a reason.
Once you're MBE certified, is that the same as becoming a city vendor?
No, it is not the same. Once you are certified, it just means you're certified. It's a marketing tool. To become a city vendor, you have to become an approved, you have to become a, let me rephrase that. No, you don't automatically become a vendor. There are some of our sister agencies like CPS, depending on what type of business you're in, they create a list of approved vendors, and then people that need those services can just pick one of those companies. Department of Procurement Services does not do that. In order to be an approved vendor, you have to be put on a list because you applied for a bid or a proposal and the city accepted your bid or proposal or that of your prime, the prime, whoever the main person getting the contract is. So that's how you become a City of Chicago Department of Procurement vendor. Okay, one more question, and then after that we can talk offline.
So now, if I become a city vendor, will this certification help on bid contracts? Like, I get the upper hand or?
So the question is, if you become certified, does it guarantee? It does not guarantee anything. And this is what I tell everyone. Being certified is great. It's a great marketing tool, but that's what it is, a marketing tool. It's a marketing tool that, yes, it should give us an upper hand when it comes to subcontractors, because the theory behind it is that the city is going to offer contracts to whoever can do the work, but you have a certain percentage that has to be performed by a minority-owned company, certain percentage that has to be done by a woman-owned company. Some contracts now have for veterans. So, yes, it's supposed to give us, but it does not guarantee it. Okay? That's the number one thing that we have to remember. Certification is a marketing tool. From here, I'm going to stick around for a second. We could answer questions privately. But at this point, our YouTube live feed will be ending. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope I was able to answer any questions you guys may have. And I hope you guys stick around for our next one, which is doing business with the city. They'll be able to answer more questions on specifics on how to get on contracts and all of the requirements. Thank you guys for coming. Yeah, you guys can call. You guys can definitely call the 4900. Anybody that answers that phone number, that phone, will be a certification officer. And if you guys want to talk to me directly, that's fine. Just ask